This recipe is for potato gnocchi. So I have all my ingredients out to start with. I have 900 grams of potatoes, and because you want your gnocchi to be light and fluffy, I'm using Maris Piper white potatoes. You could use King Edward's, any white potatoes really, as long as they don't boil away. White potato for this recipe is better than a red, which tends to be waxy. I have 50 grams of butter, 1 egg and 225 grams of plain flour. And the first thing that needs to be done is to prepare the potatoes. So as usual, onto paper towel or a plate or a bowl, you need to peel all of your potatoes first. And as the potatoes in the gnocchi are mashed, it's very important that you get rid of any bruises, any eyes, anything on the potato that could lead to lumps. So all of your potatoes need peeling to start with, and then you can chop them up to go into your saucepan. Okay, the potatoes are all peeled. I've got rid of any eyes or bruises, and they need to be chopped up ready for boiling. What's important, remember, is that you get all of your potatoes to the same size. Obviously, the smaller you cook them, the quicker they are going to cook, but I would not recommend making them smaller than that. If they are much smaller than that, they are going to cook through too quickly. About that size, they'll cook in about 10 minutes. So get your potatoes chopped up, put them into your saucepan, ready to go. And for this recipe, you can cook the potatoes to start with without adding any salt. You put the salt in later on. So I'm just going to get the potatoes in, and then just enough water to cover. Okay, so enough water like that, that your potatoes are just covered. If you fill the pan and it goes over the top of your potatoes, you're just going to be standing around waiting for longer for your potatoes to boil. So lid on, bring them up to the boil, that size about 10 minutes, simmering gently. If you leave your potatoes bigger than that, then obviously you're going to have to increase the cooking time. Okay, you know when your potatoes are cooked, if you get your sharp knife and stick it into the potatoes, and it should go in quite easily right through to the middle. These need to be drained at the sink, and I've already put my colander in the sink, so I'm just going to pour these into the colander. Shake them dry and bring them back. And now they need to be mashed, and it is much easier if you do this while your potatoes are hot. So you can mash them in the saucepan and then transfer them to a bowl if you like, or if you have one, use a potato ricer. So we really want these potatoes to be soft and fluffy for the gnocchi. So if you have a potato ricer, you just need to put these through and get them into a bowl. If you are mashing in a saucepan, that's absolutely fine. But when they are done, they need to be transferred to a bowl. So I'm just going to mash all of these potatoes into this bowl. Okay, all the potatoes have gone through the potato ricer and it's nice and smooth in the bowl. So I'm going to add in my 50 grams of butter, and I'm going to put a teaspoon of salt in, which seems like quite a lot of salt, but we want the flavour of the potatoes to come through, and we didn't add any salt when they were cooking. So I'm just going to mix this up first of all, because I want the butter to melt. So I want that to melt into the mashed potato, same as if you were making mash normally. And I've also got an egg on the side to be added, but I'm just going to get the butter in first, because if you've worked quickly, your potato will be very hot still. And what we don't want to do is to have lumps of cooked egg in this. So the butter is making this into a nice soft mixture. When I add the egg, it will be even softer. And you just need to beat your egg lightly first. So just going to break the yolk, beat that egg lightly, pop that in with the potatoes, and mix this up again. And you will end up with quite a soft mixture in your bowl, which is where you need your flour to help hold this together as these cook. So there we go. So it looks like a really soft, runny mashed potato. And I have 225 grams of flour in my bowl, and I'm just going to put roughly half in. You don't want to make this mixture too dry, and you will need some of this for rolling in a little while. And it depends on the type of potatoes you've used, how much flour you need to add. We want this to be a dough that you can handle, so you need to be able to roll it out. A little bit sticky is a little bit better than too dry, because if you've made it too dry, what you're going to taste when it's cooked is not the potato, it's going to be the flour that you've added. So that is going to add a little bit more to this. So I've now put about 3/4 of my flour in this bowl, because that was a little bit too sticky. And you can see that the mixture looks a little bit more dough-like, and it is starting to dry up a bit. So we don't want to overwork this mixture. But now when I touch it, although it is a little bit sticky, if I do it with a clean finger, I've not got anywhere near as much of the mixture sticking to my fingers. So originally I had this much of the potato mixture. Now I've got a tiny little bit, but not a huge amount, and I should be able to shape that with my hands. So that mixture now is ready for shaping. Okay, I've turned the gnocchi onto my worktop, and I'm just going to knead it slightly, because I have to be able to roll this out. So I have some of the extra flour on the worktop, and it should be a slightly sticky dough, but you should be able to roll this. So use some of the extra flour or add some flour to it until you can roll this into, or it's kneaded into, a slightly sticky dough. You need to be careful not to add too much flour to it, because we want to be able to taste the potato and not the flour. So when you've kneaded it and you've got your slightly sticky dough, you can then roll this out into a long tube. Mine is a bit floury because it is a little bit soft. However, I want to make a sausage out of this. Quite a lot of flour on the worktop at the moment, but I can roll it. And it wants to be about 1 inch wide. And there we go. And then you can cut this into 1-inch pieces. So just cut it into 1-inch pieces. Okay, depending on how soft your dough is and how much time you've got, what you want it to look like, there are 3 ways that you can shape your gnocchi. You can leave it just in the little squares and cook it like that. So you can just leave it as it is. You can also, if you want to, make a sort of thumb mark in the middle of it, finger thumb mark in the middle, so that it absorbs more of the sauce. So you just press your thumb into the middle and make a little indentation in the middle so that when you serve it with the sauce, you've got a little dimple in the middle that will hold more sauce. Or you can try rolling it on the back of a fork. You can get a gnocchi board to do this on, but all you need to do is just, excuse me, I just want to flour my finger, just push gently into your fork and roll it off the back of a fork so you have the indentations of the fork on the gnocchi. So push and roll it off so you can see the indentations of the fork on the gnocchi. Whichever way you do it, these need to be cooked in water at a rolling boil. So you must get your water to a really high rolling boil. They take 2 to 3 minutes to cook, so it's not a long time for them to cook. But if your water is not boiling, what will happen is when you put them in, they will just dissolve. Okay, these gnocchi have just come out of the saucepan. So they go into boiling water for 2 to 3 minutes only, and you know they are cooked when they start to rise to the surface. When you first put them into the boiling water, they will sink, and you need to drop them in carefully one at a time so that they don't all stick together. And then as they cook, they rise up to the surface and you can carefully remove them with a slotted spoon. But these ones have been marked with a fork, which when you put a sauce on them will hold extra sauce. So that is the finished shaped gnocchi, ready for a sauce.